This is your tropical outlook for Thursday evening, June 28th. Beginning with the Hurricane Center outlook, they are looking at the remnants of Tropical Storm Debby. It is non-tropical and only has a 10% chance of redevelopment, plus it's moving out to sea, so we're not concerned about that feature. The tropical wave in the central Atlantic is still flaring up periodically, but conditions don't appear overly favorable out ahead of that system, so we're really not anticipating any development, and the eastern Pacific is very quiet. Here's the latest surface chart, and there's nothing really to speak of in the Atlantic or the Pacific, but here is the wave in the central Atlantic with its 1015 millibar associated surface low, which is very weak. And on the visible satellite, there you can see the remnants of Debby passing very close to Bermuda. You could get some shower and gusty wind conditions for the next 24 hours, but other than that, it's really going to be a non-event. You can see the tropical wave out there in the central Atlantic looking widely disorganized, with very little convection associated with it. And as we turn to the water vapor, you can see that much of the basin is unfavorable with a lot of dry air and vertical wind shear throughout the Gulf, Caribbean, and Atlantic Ocean. The CMC model forecast shows the tropics remaining very quiet for at least the next 6 days, and the Day 7 map from the GFS shows no areas of interest. The latest ECMWF forecast shows the remnants of Debby getting picked up by the trough and quickly moving out toward the north, and is becoming fully absorbed by a much larger trough by 72 and 96 hours. But other than that, there's nothing to speak of in the deep tropics. If anything, the biggest weather news over the next week will be the deadly heat wave setting up across the central and southeast United States. It looks like it will shift from place to place from day to day, but otherwise it's going to be a rather hot week out across much of the central and southeastern United States with nothing in the tropics. Between June 25th and June 28th, we've continued to see anomalous warming out across the Atlantic Basin. So the deep tropical Atlantic has rebounded nicely from the below average water temperatures that were noted all across the winter months. And those cooler than normal temperatures were attributed to a positive North Atlantic oscillation, which favored a stronger ridge out across the Atlantic and very strong trade winds, which caused a lot of upwelling. But we're seeing quite the opposite so far over the past 30 days throughout the month of June, and potentially going into July with a negative NAO. So the ridging out across the Atlantic has been below average, and that has allowed the water temperatures to continue to rise. Elsewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, we can see the upwelling caused by Tropical Storm Debby. However, the Gulf of Mexico waters are obviously much more shallow than what we're dealing with out in the Atlantic, so those water temperatures should begin to rebound fairly easily over the next 2 to 4 weeks. In the equatorial Pacific, we continue to see a transition more toward El Nino conditions. The official designation from the Climate Prediction Center is still likely a couple of months away, but the developing El Nino is becoming more apparent day by day, not only with the increasing water temperatures across the equatorial Pacific, but also some of the other parameters, including the multivariate ENSO index, which is a good measure of how well the El Nino is impacting the global weather pattern, and those values have been rising on a monthly basis. Furthermore, El Nino becomes more likely as the Southern Oscillation Index trends more negative, and although a lot of fluctuations occur within the SOI, the 30-day average is down to negative 11, and we should begin to see more negative values over the next several months. Although the developing El Nino conditions will place a limit on the total activity that we may see in the Atlantic Basin this summer, you cannot rule out the impacts from several significant hurricanes. Keep in mind that it only takes one major hurricane to make a season deadly and destructive, and the El Nino could also be counterbalanced by the warming Atlantic water temperatures if they continue to rise in the way that they are. So thank you for following 28storms.com. Keep it tuned to our Twitter, Facebook, and the Hurricane Tracker app for more updates throughout the remainder of hurricane season.